have Dr. Kevin Mureithi, who is a brother and a friend, and he's going to be talking to us on fostering mental healing for the youth, addressing church hurt and Gen Z anxiety.
Reverend Dr. Kevin Mureithi is a distinguished practical theologian and an ordained PCEA minister serving at Milimani North Presbytery and attached as an associate minister at St. Andrew's Parish. The PCEA Church representative at St. Paul's University, he is the director of the Directorate of Research and Innovation and also a senior lecturer in practical theology at St. Paul's University. Originally trained as an electrical engineer, he transitioned into practical theology, earning his PhD from the University of South Africa. An active global and regional scholar, Dr. Mureithi is the chair of Africa Society of Evangelical Theology and a recent executive board member of the International Society for the Study of Youth Ministry. He has published widely on African Christianity and is the author of Youth Ministry After the Pandemic, a practical theology from the Global South, WIPF and Stock 2025, and general editor of Apologetics in Africa, Langham 2024. Dr. Mureithi is deeply passionate about social transformation and creating safe spaces for the next generation to engage the tough questions of faith amidst real-world anxieties. He's happily married to Jessica, and they are the proud parents of their son Noah. Please join me in welcoming our speaker, Reverend Dr. Kevin Mureithi.
I'm happy to be with you as we reflect on Gen Z, we reflect on mental health among young people. These are the realities on the ground. I just wanted to build up on what the previous speakers had said. We did begin by this concept of compassionate innovation. And I was thinking innovation, I was thinking the Bible. When we look at Genesis, we find a garden. And when we move to the end of the story in Revelation, we find a city. So how do you move from the garden to the city? You must innovate. And also the Bible can be read that way if we read it closely. But there was also the story of the trees. Reverend Harrison was asking us, which is the tree that we should focus on? But among those, besides those two trees that we talked about, there is also a garden with many other trees. And sometimes we can approach our Christian faith by focusing on the two, the traditions, the structures, but not focus on the larger forest and see that God has given us gifts and skills to till and expand on the creation that he has is also part of our mandate. So those are a few thoughts that I was reflecting on. How do we engage creatively with the issues around us? Then there's the concept of wounded healer. Wounded healer, Henry Nguyen is the one who's known that concept, and he talks about entering into the wounds, entering into the pain of those who we minister to. But wounds must also be acknowledged. We said, rather than putting this front face, we should share our wounds. That's why I was talking about Manchester United. Just a practical example, Chair, again, just as an example. The other day, my son was playing football. He's a fan of football like his father. So he was reminding me when I was young and I would go and play football and hurt my toe trying to kick the ball, I would go back home in the evening and try and walk, pretend that now I am very okay. Nata yo suru kiangalia. Very okay. But mothers, they say, I don't know if it's 6th sense, 7th sense, I think they have like 6th, 8th senses, Anauliza na leo ulikuwa wapi? And without knowing, you surrender yourself. Na unafungua roho. So the other day I saw my son also who had gone to play football and he had this wound at the back of his heel. And I could tell something has happened. And that's the thing with wounds. No matter how much we try and hide them, we must attend to them. Now, tukakuja kwa grief leo na tukakuja kwa copper wire. Now that one, I think we need to, I don't know what we can say about that session. But here's my talk. I just want to center it around data-driven. That's what Dr. Mugambi left us. Many times we are doing, when we think about young people, what I like calling hit and run approaches to engaging with young people. And so we are looking for these short-term solutions to deal with complicated issues in the lives of young people in our congregations. That's even for those of us who pay attention. But when we go to the ground, as we like to say, we will hear many things that the young people are telling us. And that's why the title of the conversation is Fostering Mental Health for the Youth, Addressing Church Hurt, Gen Z Anxiety, and the Pastoral Bridge to Restoration. What is the silent crisis in our pews? If we see, I had a nice slide there that was showing the data. So for the last 2 years, I was participating in a program from the University of Birmingham. It was called the Psychology Cross-Training Program for Theologians. And part of the work that we're expected to do was to go to our communities and identify an issue of concern and do some research around it. So for me, having worked with young people for some time, I thought this mental health thing that we usually talk about and say, young people have problems, they have anxiety. Na hata kwa maombi yetu, you know how we pray for them. Oi, gaitethia ayuthi haya. Kuna vitu za ulevi. There is promiscuity. And sometimes I ask, if I was a young person being prayed for, I came in the congregation thinking, okay, yes, I have some problems, but I'm expecting to be encouraged. But if I was a young person being prayed for, by the end of the service, I get in with myself and ask, am I okay? Am I really okay? Because the prayers are seeing me as a problem, as a burden, and not as a gift or a solution. And so one of the practical things we can already say is, how do our practices, the way we are engaging young people in our congregations, in something like the prayer for the children, the prayer for the youth, how can that be a wound? Tunakuwa kama wale, they are called the robbers. We were talking about the robbers, right? So the last 2 years, I had even a few youth pastors in PCA, but I was looking at there almost more than about 10 congregations in different denominations. 187 young people. What did they say about this issue of mental health, or what did you discover? One, we can say that we are leading a very anxious generation. I think maybe there are those who can see it. It's 54.3%, more than half of the young people, 187 young people across different denominations. So it's not just a PCA thing. It's across the churches in Kenya. And you can look at the ages that we are focusing on. They say they are going through serious anxiety disorders. And then some have personality disorders, 34%. Others sleep. They are not sleeping. So if you thought maybe you are not the only one who is not sleeping, there are also, our young people are also not sleeping. But also the last one, they are relying on substance use to cope with some of these things. So we are leading an anxious generation. So as the young people are coming to us, they are coming carrying a lot of these things. And before we even say a word, we are already communicating something to them. Just from the way we look at them. We are already communicating something before a word is on our tongue. We are leading a very anxious generation. Sorry, just a minute. So when we look at what is emerging from these things that they were saying, a number of them were saying, we don't find a space where we can be ourselves, where we can ask questions. We are made to feel as if when we are asking questions, we are questioning authority. And when we go down and look at this church hurt, because we're talking about church hurt, what is it? Church hurt is the space where youth experience deep guilt and eventually exit from the church because they feel they are broken fundamentally, or they are rejected by the church. So 2 weeks back, I'd been invited to a congregation to speak about this. I have left church, but I have not left God. I have left church, but I have not left. There is also some young people who identify themselves this way. They say, I am spiritual, but not religious. I am spiritual, but not religious. I left church, but not God. But see, we are continuing to build the big churches. And the question is, are we waiting for the young people to come to these churches, or are we doing enough to go to where they are? So when we look at this slide here, we see the various issues. Of course, COVID, we are still working on that. High unemployment. Someone talked about 2027. We need to also focus on the systems that keep people oppressed. So we think about the unemployment. Remember, vijana, if you study hard, if you work hard and study, you'll get a good job. And we have the engineers, we have the doctors, they are still in our houses. High unemployment rate. We are thinking about the comparison that they are seeing when they are on X, on Facebook, on TikTok, etc. They are seeing their friends who are doing well. And then on the other side, how do we respond? When young people come to us and say they are experiencing a lot of anxiety, they can't sleep, we tell them, just pray. We tell them, your faith is not haijatosha, ongeza imani, ongeza maombi. We tell them maybe it is a sin issue. And so instead of providing a safe space for the young people to process some of these things that they are going on, we develop a space where there is guilt, where there is silence, and where young people find the only option here for me left to do is to walk away from the church. And we are saying we're talking about good intention. So this is how it begins. They come to us, they open up to us, they share their feelings with us. What do? We say, we oversimplify the issue. We say maybe it is an issue of spiritual attack, and it could be, but it also might not be, because not all the causes of mental health are spiritual in nature. But sometimes we oversimplify. We say maybe it is a demonic influence. We say they don't have enough faith. And then what happens to them? They feel, we tell them, just pray harder. We tell them to fast for deliverance. Tell them, read your Bible. And you see this rope, what happens when that happens? It tears apart. And they feel, this is too much for me. I'm not getting any help. Wacha niende nikiendanga. I'll look for a solution somewhere. Of course, the world offers a lot of solutions. So when we talk about mental health, we need to move to a better way of dealing with young people, what I'm calling the integrated paradigm. So when we think of mental health, depression, and these are real issues for us, we're not just saying among young people, but even amongst ourselves, right? We know what we've been going through as a church. But mental illness is not just a spiritual issue, but we need to think about it in a holistic way, right? It is a holistic condition involving all the parts of who we are as human beings. We had today, when we were talking about grief, Dr. Karanja was telling us, no judgment. We need to move from that to listening. So when I was very newly as a youth pastor at Loresho Parish a few years back, I had just finished the service and a young lady came to me and told me, Pasi, we want you to continue to preach, but we want you to preach, but to preach in a way that you understand us. You preach in a way that you understand us. And I was saying earlier in the morning, young people trust before they tell. They trust before they tell. And so we usually think when we are doing work with young people that it is one way. We had all those I think Dr. Mugambi alitufanyia hile kitu. He provoked our thinking. And we think it's just one way. So we think young people should just be the receivers of ministry. And we are always doing ministry. We say we are doing ministry to young people. How are you doing ministry to young people in Happy Valley? Or in Zimmerman or in Bahati? Wacha niseme wale ambao ninawaona hapa, wacha niuliza maswali mingi. Sisi we love young people. What have you done for them? So unaona hata tuliwapea ile the old drum set. So unaona hata wako na hata musical instruments. Na hiyo drum set, it has a big hole, you can even enter inside and be shielded from the pressures of the world. We say, in fact, that's what Reverend Lucy was saying, they have their own space. But sometimes, obviously, when we think about those spaces and those instruments, what do they communicate to young people? If you are grieving them, the one that has the least value. So we might say all we want, we love young people, but that action in itself is communicating something else, that you are second rate, that you don't belong, that you are second hand. But the question that Lucy was also asking, Rev, is saying, we have also separated ourselves from them. And we say now we are even hired a youth pastor. Youth pastor, our vijana niwa. And we were joking somewhere with them and saying they are glorified babysitters. That's our view of them. So we say, we will, young people, at all the problems of vijana, tuko na youth pastor. Now, kijana ambaye ameng'ang'ana na wazazi wawili in one house from Monday to Saturday, 2 hours ya Sunday, huyu moderator wetu. So I say, one of the things that we are saying in terms of empathy and compassion and presence and activism, youth ministry is a function of the church. It's a function of the body. That's 1 Corinthians 12. That's what we've been saying, right? They are not something separate, our children and young people. They are part of the body. And in fact, our theology in the PCA is also supports this. Why do we do infant baptism? We do it because we believe God has said, I am a God unto you and to your children after you. They belong to us. Do we treat them that way, or are we still separating them from us? And we are hiring youth pastors and saying, all the problems are vijana, but the work of children ministry and youth ministry is a function, is a work of the whole church, of the session. It's a ministry of the adults in the congregation. It's a ministry of every person in the community of faith. I'll talk about the ecosystem of youth ministry shortly. Then we say spiritual. Tuliona pepo tukipigana na shetani. You saw the illustration here. You saw the illustration from daktari. Unakimbiza na shetani anakusaidia ukimbie in the opposite direction. But I'm saying, let's move to a place where we are turning on the light, not just focusing on the darkness, but turning on the light. And we have the gospel of Jesus Christ. So offering spiritual comfort and partnering with our psychologists. And that's why we have one who will be speaking to us shortly. But we go to the Bible again, that's the image of the body. We are saying they are a part of us, one body, many parts. If a young person is suffering, then we are all suffering. If a child is suffering, we are all suffering. We can't give pastoral care to the eye and not the nose. We can't give pastoral care to the left hand and not the right hand. We should give pastoral care to the whole body. And so that's why we are recovering the concept of community. So I use this because of the context of the research. I was doing it in a global context. I also wanted to bring in our own unique voice as Africans. We have this. And that's why hapa sijui kama kuna watu single, but the young people are not so many. But even if you don't invite us to a wedding here in Africa, we will invite ourselves. Hata tunaweza kununua mchele. We can even come with watu wa kupika. You don't be worried. We will be there. Community. You know, you lose a loved one and there's that care that we just show up. That's very natural to us. It's not common in other places in the world, right? So there's something there. God has also given us in our cultures these great gifts that we can bring to the body of Christ. For example, the concept of community. And if we apply it to the church, then we are applying what I would call the one another's in Scripture. Do you know, there was a question earlier, how do we move, Reverend Gikonyo, who is quite at peace. He was asking, how do we move from I, myself, me and myself, to we? You know, one of the ways we can do that, there's many places in the Bible that talks about shared ministry. Comfort one another. Pray for one another. Sing hymns and songs with one. So there are all those one another statements that remind us that we are a body. And if a certain part of the body is sick, the whole body is sick. Just the same way, my kijana Noah Derefa, if he has that wound, no matter how much he tries to walk, we know there is a problem. And until we address that wound, then the body is grieving. So in terms of moving forward, we are saying we must recover two things. I just want to talk about two things briefly. I was looking at this idea of hospitality. We are saying, you know, again, in our communities, you go for a ratio. Na munaenda na you go with gifts to give, sindio? What happens that is very interesting at the end of the day? Hata wewe unapatiwa. You know, that is hospitality in our African culture. Now, this concept of hospitality can also be traced in the Bible. For example, when Abraham is treating these guests who had come to his place and many other places. But that word we see, if you want to understand hospitality, it's just two pieces. There's a concept of provision and there is the concept of protection. The concept of provision is providing a safe space. Provide a space where young people can come with their questions. Provide a safe space where they can come with those jeans. Munasema kwani material ili? Na sasa, are you expecting them to wear? What are you expecting them to wear? The 16-year-old. And that is the stage of life that they are in. They want to play around with their hair. It's sour. It's okay. There's no issue with that. Provide safe spaces for them to explore and grow. So because I focus on youth ministry, and when I was doing my doctoral work, I learned from this gentleman called James Fowler, the stages of faith development. And Fowler says, in this period where you are between childhood and adulthood, there is a lot of development and growth in several ways. One of them is cognitive. There are many questions young people are asking. So kumwambia, usiulize swali, ni kama kuambia samaki, usiswim. It's the same. Because the fish was made to swim. The adolescent and the emerging adult, they are in a space of asking questions because they are developing in terms of their cognition. In terms of the emotions. Ameona pale kwa mtandao ameambiwa hiyo makeup jua ikiwaka na imelt, we are not sure who we will find. And they are feeling these issues of body image and they're not very safe. And then you come and make a joke. Kwa someone kwanza unatumia kama illustration na kusema hey, na nyinyi sijui mnakaanga aje siku hizi. That you're saying it as a joke, but to the young person who is in a space of emotional discovery and development, that comes across as actual church heart, you could call it that. So we need to provide a space where young people can ask the questions. I think for me, I would rather have the young people asking the difficult questions in our safe spaces in the church, rather than going out to be given simple but misleading answers. It's better that we tell them, as I was being asked one day. Angkwason, again, we used to have those two congregations before the parish was, was subdivided. But then I was doing a session with the teenagers, and one of them asked me, Pasi, Moses ndio ameandika kitabu ya Deuteronomy. And then I remembered my theology classes that sometimes we say, in ministry you don't need theology, but you need it. That's why they were looking for systematic theologians, the church that was doing that. So I say, yes, Moses is the one, but I'm answering those ones for hapa, sijui vile kutaenda. So yes, it is Moses who wrote the book of Deuteronomy. Okay, Pasi, thank you very much. Now, at the end of the chapter, I think chapter 34, there is a eulogy of Moses. Sasa, mtu anaweza andika kitabu na jiandikie eulogy, even if he was being prophetic. It is not making sense. Pasi, what is the... So tutafanyaje? See, the Bible is contradicted, I didn't have the answer, and it's very okay. We were told we are not everything. I just said, just let me research. Tutakuja tuongee nyuma ya tent. And young people, when we do that kind of thing, they are able to see we are in process. They see we don't have all the answers. They see we are human. And I think they're able to connect to that. So providing safe spaces. But the second one is shielding the wounded, protection. Over lunch hour in the table I was sitting, we said, sometimes it feels as if the church is the place where we further destroy the wounded soldier. We are wounded, but we further destroy. And the question still is, then how do we deal with the wounds of people when we ourselves are not able to do the same for ourselves? So shielding the wounded or protecting. I teach a course called Theology in Public Life. Na tunasema, let's recover the concept of church beyond the four walls. The church is in the society. Yes, you might preach the gospel na tunaenda binguni. I believe that very much. I believe those things. But the church is not in isolation. We have schools near us. We have hospitals near us. We have a legal office near us. We have organizations near us. There is certain expertise that we can benefit from in the scope of our ministry. Whether that has to do, how do we engage with the community around us? If there are people who do working in development, those could be partners. For our conversation, we are saying mental health. How are these psychologists, if they are newer Christo, see to equip them and allow them to bring the expertise to the life of the church. And they strengthen our ministry when it comes to issues of mental health. We don't need to know everyone. If the work of the pastor is to equip the saints for the works of service, then it means that we are equipping our members so that when it comes to something like pastoral care, it is also a shared duty in the church. You are empowering others who can help you with, for example, the counseling load. You don't have to do it alone. So partnering with the professionals. So we ask these young people, what are some of the things that you find the church helps you when it comes to your own mental health? Surprise, surprise. What do they say? Prayer. So young people still value prayer. So keep praying. The only thing I was just saying, maybe the only thing we need to change is how we pray. Do we, for example, provide room for lament, prayers of lament, Psalms, the book of Psalms? Why? Why? Oh, why? Oh, God, oh, why? Do we give that space? Ama tuliambiwa tunapiga. Kelele Dr. Mugambi was asking us. So also the prayer in the life of the congregation can also be diverse. It's not just about intercessory prayers or just about praying for jobs only, although they are important. But do we provide space for these who are struggling to come genuinely before God and cry out to God? So prayer is something they said, let's keep praying. Worship services. And here, I would say, please involve the young people in the worship service. Involve them in the work of mission. We are saying, those are the things we say. They don't know the church. But I ask, how would they know the church if they're not being involved? If we only think about young people as people who should receive ministry, so that we are doing ministry to young people, then we fail to do ministry with young people. We need to do ministry with young people. So go with them sometimes on pastoral visits for those who are able to. Go with them for mission. Give them a chance to preach. Well, before the main pulpit, there are some spaces they can teach in the district and things like that. Let them participate in worship services. Retreats and outdoors activities. Kwa session, those are the conversations. Hatuna pesa. Na tuliambiwa juzi, that is a lie. So again, a few years back, I remember some young people were very actually annoyed because they said they had asked for money for VBS. Wakaambiwa hakuna pesa. But shortly after, they saw a wall being built in that church. Now, it is not that church was in a desert and did not have any walls. Ilikuwa na kayapo, mzuri sana, very smart, well manicured, well cut. But there was enough money to build a wall, but not enough money to run a few days of VBS. An issue of priorities. So when they say they want to go somewhere and the budget is realistic, what our end it is helping with their mental health. They go there and laugh and do the things that young people do, and that's part of it, because we are ministering to the whole body. We are ministering to the whole person. And the command alone, nimeona their groups also during dinner, we will get to see the activities that they have in store for us. So spiritually is important. It is a buffer. It helps young people deal with mental health, but it must be done in a relational way, in a caring way, in a communal way. I like what you've been talking about, triad. We go there and ask, what are the needs that this person have, and so that we can guide them to where they can be best assisted. Same things, it's like tulikuwa ndani ya roho. Step 1, identify and validate. Kwa pavement, I grew up in those neighborhoods where people used to stay on pavements and wanachapa story, or plots. There are those places, or kamukunjis. Rather than saying, hiyo nywele yako umetoa wapi, ama wewe kwani uko na shida gani? I hear how much pain you are in. You are not broken and God has not abandoned you. Compare those two. I think if someone would respond this way, you would want to open up more and share more. Assess the need. unapimwa, usually sometimes they'll take the blood, they'll measure your weight, and wengine wetu, if they did that now after lunch, we would have added a few. Determine what they need. Do they need just a conversation? Do they need a prayer? Is it a spiritual issue? Do they need a psychologist? We've seen it's a bit intense. Are you safe right now? Can we explore getting you some extra support? Then intervene and refer. So in the congregation, the pastor is not working alone. The pastor has, first of all, we have people in the session, whether it is in the session or in other ministries. And I can see parish ministers here who have come with those who share ministry with them. I think that's a fantastic example, right? Because when they are empowered, Kesho, when you're not able to go, you'll say, Pastor Mbora, please go to place X and Y. And you can go and minister to another family. So intervening and referring, because we are thinking about the congregation as an ecosystem of care. It's not just about me as the individual, but it's about empowering the congregation to respond to the issues. That's what we're saying. As I conclude, we're thinking about, when we think about mental health and strengthening youth ministry to help young people deal with the questions they are asking, building youth who are resilient, who can push through, we are talking about pastoral presence. We have this is where, this is our expertise, if I would call it that way, right? We talked about innovation, but how do we organize our prayer? So that it's not just the same thing that we say every Sunday. Our liturgies. Compassionate innovation when it comes to liturgy. Another big space that is untouched when we talk about spiritual comfort and safe spaces. And then we think about our healthcare professionals in congregations, psychologists, psychiatrists, medical doctors. They are our partners in our ministry. And then what are the communal issues that are affecting? Family structures. Fatherlessness, not just as the absence of physical fathers, but they may be present physically, but emotionally absent. They may be present physically, but spiritually absent. Fatherlessness. So what are some of those social, cultural issues that are going on that affect their mental health? This is what we're saying as we conclude. Fostering mental healing requires us to abandon the lens of power, and adopt the posture of a wounded healer. When we end the stigma and embrace a theology of hospitality, we stop losing our youth. We stop losing our youth, and they are not alienated. And that was our verse. But just as the body is one and has many members, so it is with Christ. Look at that one at the bottom. A reconciled church ministry heals individuals, heals families, and heals community. The threads are many, but they are connected. And if one string is disconnected, the whole body is disconnected. So this will be circulated later. There is much more for those who want to engage with some of the work that came out of it. There is Psychology and Theology of Mental Health. These are just 2 blog posts. Practical Theology of Mental Health, looking at the Bible, goes more in depth. And by the grace of God, there was some additional funding to do further work. When we talk about innovation, so one of the things I have in mind is young people always have ideas. But does the church come alongside them to help them to develop these ideas into innovations, into services, into goods that can help them to deal with some of the anxiety that they have? So we're saying we are leading an anxious generation, but are we also creating spaces where they can engage creatively from the resources of faith, from the support that we give them in the church? I believe that we have remarkable resources even here in this meeting, but we need to focus those in a way that would strengthen the work that we are doing with young people, so that we are able to address church hurt and anxiety by being bridges of restoration and reconciliation. In the name of God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Let us give a round of applause to Daktari again. Thank you very much. And I think for those of us who are in this particular room who are interested in terms of matters of youth, we can see a deep passion. And as I say, he has been a blessing to us and continues to be a blessing to us, and especially in the scholarly world, because he has given us tools and resources that we can actually be able to go to understand youth ministry so that we may consider it. And I think it is amazing, it is a wonderful thing when he says that, you know, we need to consider both the youth ministry and the children's ministry, you know, as a core function of the church. Amen. And so I think that is important. So one of the things that has actually hit home is the fact that we are leading an anxious generation, aren't we? And so it is important for us to understand how to address them. All right, good. So as we said, so you'll notice that we will not be confining our questions first of all to Dr. Kevin. We'll have our next speaker come in, so that after, then you can be able to keep your questions for Dr. Kevin. You can be able to write them. You'll be able to ask them later, and then so that our next speaker can be able to have her wonderful time. Next speaker on stage will be Professor Margaret Mwenje, and she's going to be coming on so that she can be able to tackle the topic that is there written for us. Let them come to me.
Professor Margaret Mwenje is a born-again believer and a member of the Presbyterian Church of East Africa, PCEA, worshipping at Ishashiri Parish in Gatondo Presbytery. She is an associate professor of counseling psychology in the Department of Social Sciences at Karatina University, and also serves as the director of Center for Community Outreach at the same institution. Professor Mwenje holds a PhD in counseling psychology from Cornerstone University, a Master of Education specializing in guidance and counseling from the University of Montevallo, and a Bachelor of Arts in Biblical Studies from Southeastern Bible College, USA. She also holds a master's certificate in trauma and recovery from Oviedo, Italy, and a certificate in mental health assessment and psychological first aid from the U.S. Department of Health. She is a specialist in addiction and rehabilitation counseling, a certified drug abuse therapist, and a certified marriage and family therapist. She has extensive experience in counseling, consultation, and clinical counseling supervision. Her research interests span a wide range of social science disciplines, including alcohol substance use disorders, marriage and family therapy, and psychological and behavioral sciences. Professor Mwenje currently serves as the chair of Kenya Guidance, Counseling and Psychological Association. She has attended, organized, and presented papers at international conferences and has supervised postgraduate students at Kenyatta University, Kabarak University, Pan-African Christian University, and Karatina University. Please help me to warmly welcome Professor Margaret Mwenje.
Okay, I'm Margaret Mwenje, as you have been taught, and we're going to talk about woods, childhood woods, and to dwell more on grief among children. But grief or loss of a loved one is not the only childhood experience that attacks young children. And I really want to thank the organizers of this conference, especially because of thinking about children, because we have so many adults. Maybe you have them in your congregations, maybe you have them in your neighborhood, or even in your families, who are struggling with some maladaptive behaviors, drinking and doing some other crazy things. But the genesis of all that is the childhood experiences, that the things that we go through when we are growing up, especially the painful experiences. We have a tendency of packing those things, packing in quotes, in our little briefcase, let's call it a briefcase, and then we continue packing, and this actually affects many children because unconsciously there is that pain that we experience when you are growing up. And that pain continues affecting us even as we grow up. And that is the reason why it is very, very important to take care of children. It's very important to take care of their woods. Because if we don't, then that means that we're going to have some adults who are struggling with good experiences. And there is one time we were doing some studies on the effects of childhood experiences on drugs, drug abuse, on crime. And we found out that majority of the people are in prisons. And majority of them we have in our rehabilitation programs, they went through some childhood experiences, some painful experiences. And that's why it's very, very important to actually take care of these wounds before they actually become a problem to us. And one thing that we need to understand is that when you get hurt, maybe when you have a small wound, if you cut yourself, or if that child, let's talk about children because that's my business today. If that child cuts himself or herself and has a small wound, it's very easy for the mom to notice. It is very easy for the caregiver to note, and you just get a bandage and take care of that wound. Is that what you do? But if you don't take care of that wound, if you don't take care of it, it's going to get worse. But we are so much fond of taking care of the physical wound. But even if maybe that wound heals, especially if that child was molested, the physical wound will heal, but the inner wound will remain. It's just like having a gunshot, God forbid. And then that gun wound will actually heal, but there is an inner wound that is usually left. Unfortunately, not many people will see that, and people will continue suffering. And that's why we're going to talk about taking care of those people so that we take care of the children so that we don't have adults who have passed through our hands, through our ministries, and then they end up using drugs in order to actually medicate that in emotional pain. If we don't take care of these young people, if we don't take care of children, we're going to actually have a very hard time, a big crowd of people who will be suffering, and we might be saying in which we knew. Okay, so let's get started. And I think I have some very few minutes, but I hope we're going to be able to finish. Don't be scared about the number of slides. I'm just going to skip a number of them, but you're going to get these notes. So Jesus said, let the children come to me. Maybe he said that because he saw some children who are suffering and who are hurting, and he was seeing some wounds that the people around were not seeing. So that's why he called them. The objectives of this session, what I would want us to actually accomplish, and I hope it happens, is to understand what it means for a child to be wounded, and also to recognize the signs of emotional, psychological, and spiritual distress, and also to learn some practical ways to support children, and also to reflect on our roles as caregivers, as teachers, as ministers in supporting children who might be hurting. So those are the objectives of our session. Now, the biblical perspective on children. Jesus valued children so much, and that's why he said, let the children come to me. And the Bible also says that children are an inheritance from the Lord, right? And then all souls belongs to God. According to Ezekiel 18, verse 4, all children belongs to God. And actually he says, for everyone belongs to me, the parent, whereas the child, the parent and the child, all belongs to God. And caring for children is both our spiritual and moral responsibility. In fact, whether you are a Sunday school teacher or a Sunday school coordinator, or even a priest, a pastor in a parish, all of us, it is our responsibility to take care of children. Because God holds children very dear. Okay? Now, some people think that children don't grieve. They don't really go through grief. Children are not so much affected when they lose loved ones. But I want to remind us all that during the loss and even after the loss, children really matter. And every loss is valid. Hello? Every loss is valid. Even if it means just losing a pet. Even if it means losing a grandmother. Somebody may say, this is just a grandmother. This is just an auntie. It all depends on how close this child was with the person who has passed on. So every loss is valid. And children's pain also matters. And we need to pay attention to that. But let me tell you what happens if you don't take care of this pain when these guys are young. They are going to pack those bitter and full feelings in their little briefcase. And that is what you all do sometimes. You get hurt and you don't want to talk about what is happening, what is bothering you. You pack those feelings in the briefcase in the goods. You get upset, you lose a loved ones, you are hurting emotionally and psychologically, you keep on packing those feelings in your little briefcase. As you continue dragging it along in life, it becomes heavy and heavy. Is that true? And as it becomes heavy, some people will actually get stuck. because of that briefcase that is full of issues. And then you give us a lot of work, because when you come for counseling, we will help to unzip that briefcase and sort out those issues one by one. And unfortunately, for many men, and I'm glad you have many men in this house, for many men, they are very good in packing because of the way you are socialized. You are told that you are not a woman, you are not a lady, you are not like your sister, and so you should not cry, you should not show emotions, you should not even, just show everybody that you are weak. You need to stay strong. Kukaa ngumu. Iyo kukaa ngumu, you are packing so many emotions and you're going to get stuck at some point. And that's why somebody said, or a research was done that established that we are losing very many of our African men because of stress-related illnesses. That is high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and some other problems. And many people packed those issues right from the time they were young. So I was saying that there are some genesis of some of these wounds that many children are suffering from. And some of these wounds are coming from losing a loved one. And they are wounds that really hurt. And we also have some spiritual wounds, that is anger about God. I looked at your program and I noted that somebody was talking about loss, grief, and trauma, something related to that. And when we lose loved ones, we are supposed to go through grief. But there are different stages of grief. The first reaction or the first stage is when you hear the news and you are like, what? You are in shock. And then the next one, you are in denial. And then you get into anger. And some people get angry at God. And there are some people who say, I'm not going to pray anymore because we prayed for Mama to get healed, but she still died anyway. Where was God? Why didn't God answer? So some people are mad at God. And then some other people say, we're not going to go to church anymore. And you have those kind of people. And that's why when you have some kids who have lost their loved ones and you don't see them in church, please pursue them, get closer to them so that they don't isolate. And then we also have social wounds, that is isolation, being bullied and all that. Emotional wounds because of fear, rejection, and shame. And we also have psychological wounds. Psychological wounds that many children struggle with. Not all wounds are faceable. We have children, and you have them, by the way, in your churches. There are some of them who have been molested. Do you have them? They have been sexually molested. And that leaves a very painful wound. And that is why you should not allow that wound to continue. They need some kind of a first aid, because if they are not encouraged, if they are not helped, that wound, that inner wound is going to continue affecting them even in adult life. We also have some children who are physically abused. Others are emotionally abused. Others are verbally abused because there are some parents who are very toxic. We also have some family violence. Any child who is exposed to family violence is actually affected, because some children will even blame themselves if the parents separate, if the parents divorce. And that's why we should not forget about children. Even when you are counseling people, that is marriage and family therapy, and the parents have deliberately decided to separate, please pay attention to the children, because some of them actually blame themselves. And that can be the starting of a very painful wound. And they'll never trust any adult, even when they get married, or they actually even fear. They have that kind of fear of men, because it's like, this is what daddy did. So that actually affects them even as they grow. Now, loss of a loved one and some common questions. There's a time I was making this kind of a presentation, and this, whatever I'm presenting right now in this slide, it is informed by some questions that came, because I don't want to be asked these questions, so let me just address them. After the loss, who breaks the news? Who goes to tell this child that your mom or your dad or your grandmother or even your sister has passed on? Who should take that responsibility? The person who should take this responsibility is somebody who is close to the child, somebody that the child trusts, and somebody who has some kind of attachment to the child. This can be the mother, but if the mother is not able to, because possibly she's really affected, you can get somebody else, another caregiver who is close to this child. Even if you are being called as a leverage to go break the news, please tag along somebody who the child is familiar with. Is that making sense? Then another question is, when do you break the news? If maybe the school is in session, wait until the classes are over. Once the classes are over, then you can actually request, to talk to the child. And then where do you do that? In a very quiet place. This quiet place, we call it a therapeutic environment. It's a healing environment. It's a hiding place. It's a space where this child will feel safe as you break the news. And then how do you break the news? Because as a Sunday school teacher, coordinator, you might be called actually to break the news. What do you say? So that you don't hurt this child. And remember, when people are hurting, actually, anything that you say, they'll keep it. They'll keep remembering. Even you, if you have ever lost a loved one, whatever you are told or what the first person who talked to you, you keep remembering that, isn't it? You remember it very vividly. And that is why they need to be very clear, especially for children. The explanations need to be shorter. This is not the time to start explaining, giving some long stories. They won't actually pay attention to those long stories. Just avoid that and avoid phrases like Mama rested. Because this child, if somebody rests, what happens? You rest and then you wake up after resting, isn't it? Or even some people will say, your mama slept. When you sleep, you wake up. So we confuse these children when we use phrases like that, and especially between the age of 2 to 4, because they take things as you say them. So they'll be there waiting for mama to wake up. And then you actually need to make sure that you say, you can say something like, your mama was sick. Mom was sick and she was in the hospital, but she got very sick and the doctors were not able to make her feel well. So at that point, the child psychologically will start expecting the worst. You are preparing this child, okay, or maybe it was an accident. You say something like, mom was traveling to this place. I'm just using mom as an example. Was traveling and got into an accident. And sometimes accidents can be very bad. Somebody can really get hurt. So mama was involved in an accident and she really got hurt badly, was taken to the hospital and the doctors were not really able to help her. So you are preparing this child psychologically and that helps a lot. So don't just drop the bomb to scare the child. And then who else should be informed? Inform the teachers, because even after the funeral and everything else, this child will go back to school and the teachers need to be very supportive. Is that making sense? The teachers need to understand that this child is going through some stuff because the child may start reacting. The child may be struggling with unresolved grief or what we call complicated grief and antisocial behaviors. And the teachers need to know so that they can understand where that is coming from. And that is very, very important. Then should children attend funerals? Yes, they can attend, especially if they are of age. Unless maybe it is 2 years, 1, 2, 3, maybe they may not. But from 4 years, 5 years, they can, especially if they want to. Because once they go, it is actually a very good way, or it is actually part of the grief process, because they will be able to say goodbye. And as you go with these children, it is very important also to prepare them psychologically. Let this child know, okay, when we go to the funeral, we're going to have a casket, you can even say like a box, and mama is going to be sleeping there, but she's not going to respond. Then you repeat the issue about the past, the death, and all that stuff. And then the child will not be scared when people are passing aloud, and maybe also he or she maybe want to view the body. So you prepare these children psychologically. And then what if the child is actually less than 5 years? If the child is less than 5 years, you make sure that you carry a caregiver or a babysitter or somebody who can actually stay with the child for some time. Now, age is very, very important because depending on where this child is in the developmental stage, they are going to react to grief or to the death differently. Is that true? The children who are 2 years and 3 years grief, they do. Because between 2 and 4 years, they don't have much understanding, but they experience the absence of the parent or the person who has passed on. And you'll see them having disturbed sleep. You'll see them just crying because of the attachment. Attachment is very, very important. So the child may not understand, but can be able to sense something is not really right. And they may ask some questions repeatedly. Where is mama? Where is mama? Because they have not conceptualized that death is actually final. So as they ask these many questions, just be patient with them and respond to these questions well. 4 to 7 years. These ones may draw some inaccurate conclusions, but they still understand because they can see other people crying and mourning and many visitors coming to their home. So they tend to ask some questions about death. It's like they don't have clear understanding, but they have some questions and they know death is final. And this happens with like this category, 4 to 5 to 7 years. And they will ask questions like my own nephew, when my dad passed on, he asked his mom, my sister-in-law, now, our Sunday school teacher told us that when people die, they go to heaven, and heaven is up. How come that Papa was actually put in the ground in a deep hole? Because I saw it, Mama, a deep hole, and they even covered him with some soil. How come? And you are told that good people go to heaven, but but Papa, they put him down in a hole. That question makes a lot of sense because at this particular age, they are logistical. They can use, they can listen a bit, and that's why we should not ignore them. Let's answer these questions as they come. How did this person die? Okay, does he hurt? Are we going to see him again? Then you start talking about the concept of heaven. Then 7 to 13 years. At this particular age, they have matured, their brain is actually growing. And I want you to understand that this age, the ages that we are talking about, these are formative years. So at this particular age, they are more they are more logical. And they can reason. And they can still see others mourning and crying, and they understand. Then 13 to 18, they are old enough. But the bottom line is, if we don't take care of this wood, this inner wood at this particular age, up to 18 years, if we don't take care of it, it's not that it's not there, it is there. It's going to actually escalate, and these guys are going to be hurting even as they grow up. And they are going to look for some few things to medicate that inner emotional pain. And that is what we are trying to prevent. That's why we need to take care of them and to give them some attention. How are these kids affected? Actually, they are affected by not concentrating. They don't concentrate. They become more irritable, angry at nothing, and they withdraw. There is excessive crying, decline in school performance, aggressive behaviors, deviant behaviors, and also some antisocial behaviors. And I want you to understand that grief, because this is the wood, the trauma. This trauma affects every part of the body. It affects this child psychologically, emotionally, and socially. It's like it affects all the dimensions of life. And I want you to understand that if we don't take care of this trauma, this person is going to grow to start struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder. The post. That's why we need to take care of them as they, when they are still young. When this wood is still fresh, we need to take care of them before it becomes a serious inner wood. You can see that girl. How does she look? Very sad and maybe traumatized. But we don't want that emotional wood to continue. We want her to be okay so that she can be able to move on. And the inner wood actually makes these guys to not trust other people. They become so clingy. They cling onto the remaining parent. If it is the dad who has passed on, they cling to the mother because sometimes it's like if mama has gone, I don't want mama to go. I don't want daddy to go. Have you ever seen that? They cling to the remaining parent because it's like, okay, so death has taken away my dad. So how about my mama? So they get so clingy. And they start, some of them will go back to bedwetting. Maybe they had even stopped bedwetting, but they just go back. That means that there's something, this wood that is inside, the trauma is actually hurting too much because human beings react to painful experiences in two ways. We project or we introject. Introjection is where you turn that pain inwardly. Is that making sense? You turn that pain inwardly, and that is what causes some illnesses like what, for especially for children. They start struggling with acid. They start struggling with, what do you call it? Ulcers. And to me, based on my experience in counseling, I strongly believe that ulcers is not about what you eat, it is about what is eating you. And that happens even to adults. So if you are struggling from ulcers, it's eating you. It's not really about what you eat. According to me, that's my little theory. And they believe that the world is generally not safe. And because they believe that the world is not safe, that is why we need to provide that sense of safety. Is that making sense? That sense of safety, let them feel safe, because after the death, they feel this world is not actually very safe. And anger and irritability and poor concentration and all those kind of feelings. Early intervention is very important. When you cut yourself, it is very important to take care of that wound before it becomes septic. Is that true? It is the same thing that happens to the inner wound. You need to take care of it immediately. And that is where we talk about psychological first aid. You need to take care of that wound immediately. Why is it important? It helps to prevent what we call complicated grief. Complicated grief is where somebody fails to process the grief. In fact, we are supposed to go through grief and not get stuck in grief. Is that making sense? You go through grief and not get stuck in grief, because grief is a process. It starts with the choke, the denial, the anger, the acceptance, the depression, and the acceptance. So if you don't process that grief, it becomes complicated grief, or what we call unprocessed grief. Now, it also helps to prevent long-term mental health issues. Because I told you that there are some people today who are struggling with mental health issues, and we can actually peg those issues on what happened to them, losing a loved one. And maybe that wound was not taken care of, so it became a complicated grief, and it became a septic wound, inner wound. It also helps to improve relationships. And when we talk about relationships, we have two types of relationships. We have the interpersonal relationship, and also we have intrapersonal relationship. Intra is where you relate with yourself. Is that making sense? You relate with yourself. Do you like yourself? Do you love yourself? Are you compassionate about yourself? And are you kind to yourself the way you relate with yourself? So if you don't take care of this wound early enough, then we're going to have people who hate themselves, they don't believe in themselves, and they're actually hurting, and that hurt should not be allowed to take place. That's why we need to do intervention early enough. It also helps to improve resilience. It helps to actually break the cycle of trauma. As I told you that if you don't take care of this wound, it becomes a very bad wound. Post-traumatic stress disorder. How can you be able to tell that a child is actually hurting? How can you be able to tell that somebody has an inner wound? Because it is not visible, actually. You can be able to tell if you observe some behaviors, some difficult behaviors. This is actually a sign of distress. In psychology, we believe that every behavior is caused. Every behavior is caused, and that is why you don't just wake up one morning and start behaving in a certain way. Every behavior is caused. So if you see some difficult behaviors among the children that you care about, this is a sign of distress. If you see some silence, unusual silence, this is a child who is unusually, is unusual, is never silent. It's a child who is just up and about and very outgoing and talking and doing all those sorts of things. If you see them silent and withdrawing, that is a sign of some kind of fear. And anger, it is a sign of hurt and emotional pain. So those are signals. So let's talk about how can you practically support wounded children. How can you support them? Number one, as you start interacting with this child, try to build some trust. Build some trust. Try to provide a safe environment. Try to look friendly, understanding, and empathic. Empathy means trying to fit in somebody's what? Trying to fit in somebody's shoes, but please don't get in somebody's shoes and get stuck in them because you have your own shoes. Right? Because sometimes you deal with people who are really hurting. And then you try to be very empathic. You try to fit in their shoes. And then you get stuck in their shoes. Remember, you always have your shoes to keep. So you try to show some empathy. You try to create a safe environment. And that safe environment is characterized by unconditional positive regard. You accept this child the way she is or he is. The child you feel loved. The child you feel nurtured. And the child you feel that you really care. By the way, you don't have to tell this child, you know what, by the way, I'm a very understanding person. They can be able to tell. Even you can be able to tell whether somebody is understanding or not, isn't it? Please try to communicate understanding. Try to communicate empathy, to this child. Try to be a good listener. Listen actively. Is it possible to tell whether somebody is listening to you or not? You can, because you can be able to tell whether somebody's mind is in the other side of town. Even for the children, try to maintain eye contact. Try to not abate, just to show that you understand and to show that you are with them and that, I really understand. I really, you are really hurting. It's okay. You will be okay. Okay? But please don't tell them it's okay when they have lost a loved one, because somebody can ask you, what is okay about losing a dad? What is okay? You are saying it's okay. It's not okay. And they'll shout at you because it's not okay. Now, encourage them to express their feelings and validate them. This is very important. Number 5. Encourage them to express their feelings and also validate those feelings. It is very, very important because you don't want them to pack in quotes. You don't want them to pack those feelings, those painful experiences and emotions. You don't want them to do that. You want them to express their feelings as opposed to bottling them up. The bottled up emotions, that is what brings problems. Is that making sense? And this applies even to us as adults. When you bottle up emotions, you don't want to express emotions, and you are hurting, and you have that emotional wound, and you don't even want to talk about it, that is not healthy for you, because that is what invites stress-related illnesses. So encourage them to express their feelings. But if they don't want to, don't force it. Just tell them something like, if you want to talk, I'm here for you. Or do you want to talk about it? And then they'll be like, no, I don't want to talk about it. I'm here for you if you are ready to talk about this. Okay? Just be very nice. Be the best counselor you can. Because sometimes we follow the Lord Jesus Christ is our word of counselor. And then validate those feelings. Because they are not your feelings. They are feelings from this child who is actually hurting. Avoid dismissing the feelings. Don't dismiss them. Validate them. Then something else that we need to do. Ask open-ended questions. Ask the child something like, do you want to tell me what happened? Note the word want. Do you want to tell me what happened? How did it make you feel? How are you feeling now? You are trying to help this guy to unpack and not to pack the emotions, because that is the danger. That is what is going to cause some problems even in adult life. This is what is going to cause, some antisocial behaviors. And this is what is going to cause post-traumatic stress disorder. So we want these children to unpack. Encourage expression of the feelings. And you can also use artwork, drawing, and we're going to talk about that if we have enough time. Pray with the child and for the wounded child. Pray with them and for them. Is that making sense? Let them know that somebody got back. Let them know that you care about them. Let them know at least somebody is here to carry some of the burdens, and they will feel like, you also care and they are not alone. They will feel they are not alone. And that kind of a feeling is very, very important. Avoid using faith to dismiss pain. Just pray about it. God will help you. Don't dismiss that. Don't use pain to dismiss the pain, because the pain needs to be experienced so that they can be able to heal. Normalize grief. Help the child understand that it's okay to grieve. It is okay to cry. It is normal to feel sad. It is okay, so that they don't feel like they are abnormal or they are losing it. Let them know it is okay. It's fine. Encourage some remembrance of the person who has passed on. You can start by creating a memory box. Later, we'll talk about how to create a memory box. We'll talk about how to draw pictures and how to use art so that you can be able to help this child, process the grief without getting stuck in grief. Be patient. Understand that grief is a process. It takes time. It is not a one-day event. Some people take longer, others take shorter time. Now, there's something that we call expressive therapy. Expressive is about expressing yourself. Is that making sense? When you are talking about being hurt, when you are saying, I'm feeling upset, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling happy, those feelings, it's very important to express them, especially the feelings about a painful experience, about losing a loved one. And that's why it's very, very important to express ourselves. But now a very small child, maybe 2 to 9 years, they may not find the right vocabularies to tell you. They may not be able to tell you, I'm really feeling traumatized, I'm feeling angry. They may not be able to put a name to whatever they are feeling. And that is why we use expressive therapies. Expressive therapies mean using art or even music or play therapy. It's like inviting a child to a familiar world. The world of children is play, right? And drawing and just having fun. So you can use that fun to help this child heal. And one thing that you can do is actually to help them express themselves through music, through poetry, through, just lighting, creative lighting, journaling, and all that stuff. In other words, you'll be helping this person or this child to engage in non-verbal communication. They'll still be communicating, but it is telling without what? Telling without talking. We want them to tell. We want them to talk. We want them to express themselves. Like, what do you think this kangaroo is doing? She's drawing. How many people here deal with children? Maybe children coordinators, Sunday school teachers. Wonderful. They are not so many. God bless you. They are not many because, by the way, not many of us like working with children. I have a friend who is like, I cannot even teach Sunday school because I'll just be beating them up. I don't have patience. I don't have patience with children. And I'm like, okay, she was telling me she cannot even teach the early childhood, classes and all that. So it's a gift, it's a calling. And I think that is where there are not many people. So in your classes, you need at least to make sure that your space is child friendly. If you have some carpet, make sure it is friendly. If it's the painting and all that stuff, and all this good wachungaji is your help to decorate, those classes, they need to be child friendly. So now, when you want to do the drawing or this kind of art for healing purposes, you need to provide the child with different colors. When a child is traumatized or when a child is grieving, please don't pick the colors for them because there is something that we call psychology of colors. This child may actually pick black. Because maybe they are just feeling angry and they are not feeling good. They may pick some light, nice colors, and that means something to them. It may not, whatever it means, the child may not be the same. It may not have the same meaning for you. So you just tell the child to draw, just draw how you feel. Just anything about how you feel. And then they'll do it. And they are the ones who will pick the colors. And then you can ask them, why did you pick? By the way, let me tell you that there is no picture, there is no photo there's nothing there's no artwork that is ugly. It is all good because it is not about you. It's about the child. So you just say, wow, this is nice. What does this mean? Why did you pick the bright colors or the black color and all that stuff? So let the child feel free. It is their world. Let them draw how they are feeling. It is talking. It is actually communicating without talking. You can actually use what we call an emotional wheel. An emotional wheel means that you have this wheel, this big wheel. You can just draw it yourself and maybe color it. And then you give different names. That is disgusted. I'm feeling disgusted. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling what? Angry. Rage actually is, sense anger or something like that, screaming, and also surprised. And then you can tell the child, can you point to me how you are feeling right now? And the child cannot be able to say, I'm feeling afraid. They may not be able to verbalize it. But when they see this, and if it's a very young child, you can even read out and explain what these terms mean. The child may actually point at this. Then it's like, wow, you are feeling angry. Can you talk about that? Exactly who are you angry at? They tell you, I'm very angry at God. Then you sort it out. Or I'm feeling very angry at my mama. I'm feeling very angry at myself. Then you start a conversation from there. Is that making sense? And then a child can just point blue. They say, I'm feeling blue. And then you ask them, wow, you are feeling sad. Can you talk about that? And then they start the conversation. You want them to talk. Remember, we are trying to get them to vent out or express their feelings as opposed to bottling up emotions. So it is called an emotional wheel. We also have, this is the explanation for that. I'll share these notes through Leverage. The emotional wheel it can actually help to visualize some feelings. It can help you to understand the emotions that the child is going through. But you are just trying to look for a conversation, which may not come using the normal conversation or the normal asking of questions. But you can actually do that by using the emotional wheel. Now, you can also draw something like this for the child. It's a blank. What is this? It is the heart. We are told that the heart is the seat of all emotions. Happy emotions and even sad emotions. Is that true? Yeah, all that is actually in the heart. So you can just draw a blank one. Then you give the child some colors, the crayons and all and the color pencils. And then you tell them to just, paint anything on this heart according to how they are feeling. Just anything. If you are feeling happy, if you are feeling sad, just paint it there. And then you have a key and it will look it will look like this. So the child will actually color, just put any color depending on how they are feeling. And happy means what? Orange. Orange is happy. So then you can start a conversation that could not have been possible to start using the normal conversation. Is that making sense? Because children like having fun, and children are, this is inviting them to their world. I know it can be boring to some people who don't like working with the children, but then you can start a conversation about, wow, this is nice. What are you happy about? Then they'll tell you. And then if maybe it is sad, where is sadness? Sadness is like it's occupying a big space. And then you ask them, wow, it's like you're also sad. Your heart is also sad. Exactly what are you sad about? And then they will talk. We want them to talk as opposed to doing what? Bottling up these emotions, because that is what we are trying to prevent, so that they don't start struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder because of holding so much pain and so many emotions that are painful. Then scared, I'm feeling scared, I'm feeling nervous, I'm feeling confused, I'm feeling guilty. Some kids, you'll be feeling guilty even after losing a loved one, because they'll be like, maybe I was not very good to mama, maybe I was not very good to daddy, or maybe the separation, the divorce, it has happened maybe because I was not a good kid. Okay? Now, this is about what is in your heart. That is what you ask the child before they start growing. Okay? Then you can also have some faces. Just by looking at this, what do you see? A happy face. How about this? A sad face. So what you can do, you can actually draw these kind of faces. And then you tell the child, you can do them in some kind of practicals. And then you tell the kid, just pick one that reflects how you are feeling now. They may pick this one. If they pick the happy face, then you ask them, what are you happy about? What brings you joy? And then you start a conversation from there. Then for this one, and this is likely to be the one that you're losing a loved one because they are hurting. Then you start by telling them, wow, that is still, it's still, it's normal, And then what is really making you feel sad mostly? How are you feeling right now? I'm feeling very sad. exactly what are you sad about, then they talk. You want them to vent out. I hope you are getting that. You know, a wood that has been covered, it has some pus, and it is becoming septic. That is what is going to bring some problems in the future, even some illnesses, even some mental health issues. So that is what we are trying to avoid. That's why we are doing some kind of first aid or psychological first aid. That's why we are trying to support this kid so that he does not bottle up emotions. So she'll say, I'm very, very sad. What are you sad about? And then they express themselves and they vent out, because we don't want them to bottle up emotions. Is this making sense, especially for those of you who are working with children? For all of you. Yeah. By the way, this is also very good for parents. You can try this. There's a time I was teaching expressive therapies. I think that time I was in Kenya. And we used to do it practically. My students would sit on the floor, and then you draw. You draw how you are feeling, the feeling heart, and also the wheel. You can also try to do it. By the way, I'll share these notes. Try to do it with your children so that you can know what they are thinking. You can know what is in their heart, and they can express and you can teach them how to express their feelings as opposed to bottling up emotions. I think I kind of done this about the feeling. This again is an explanation of how you can do it. And there's something that we call sculpting. This is where you have the clay. So for those of you who work with children, please make sure that you have some clay in your classrooms. You just get the clay and you tell the child or the children to sculpt the members of their family. So in this family, who do you see? The mother and the child, maybe the child who sculpted herself, and then the father. And this can be used even when there's some chaos at home, when parents are fighting and all that stuff, and or it can also be used when a child is bleeding. And maybe it is the mother who passed on. And you see where the child is sitting, between the father and the mother. And now the father or the mother maybe is gone. The mother has died. So the child is left alone. And maybe he may sculpt the father being a bit far. And then sculpt himself and who? And the mother, because they are the ones who have been left. And maybe the sister and the brother, but the father is far off. And then once they do that, they position the sculpt, then you ask them, who is this? This is my father. Why is he away from the others? He died. How does that make you feel? I feel sad. I feel upset. You see, you can use, they are talking without, they are talking to you, but through acts. I hope that is making sense. Yeah. And then also, if there are some conflicts in the family, they can also do the same, because you are not only going to deal with children who have lost loved ones. There are some mothers who are going through other stressors at home, and sculpting actually helps a lot. You can see a child actually sculpting himself, and he's so detached. He's actually separated, and it's like, why are you here? Because I'm afraid. What are you afraid about? I'm afraid of dad. Why are you afraid of dad? Because he beats me up. Is that child telling you something? Yeah. So we can actually use art, different types of art, drawings, and even play therapy. You can just get balloons, and then with the balloons, you just poke, and then they are having, the kid will start having fun, and we relax. And as the child relaxes because of that prayer and all that, then you can start a serious conversation. So I think that is, I'm done. And because the next one is about creating a memory box. This one, even adults, even myself, I think I have a box for my mom who passed on. It's creating a memory box. This is about, when people die, there are some people who say, I don't want to see any photo on my wall that reminds me of the person who passed on. Have you ever been there? You don't want to see any photos. You don't want to see anything that reminds you of the person who has died. And some people, you start plucking those photos and giving away. Please don't give them away. Just get them, pack them nicely in the box, because a time will come when you'll be looking for anything that reminds you of that person and you'll not find them. So it's very important to just pack them and put them somewhere. That's called a memory box. It's about packing whatever you want to keep to celebrate the person who has died. And that is what we call the memory box. So I think I'm done.
Thank you very much, Prof, for such a profound presentation. Asante sana. Can we give her another round of applause? Thank you very much. For some of us who have very young children, I think this is amazing. I'm thinking about how I'm going to draw that wheel when I get home. Perhaps I'll also express my emotions there. The only thing that we'll do is that we'll take 2 questions, 2 only. Rev, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to ask a question that is directed to Reverend Dr. Kevin. When you were talking about the youth asking questions, I just remembered that when we were growing up, we were not given that opportunity to ask questions. And as we were saying, that asking questions looked like we are challenging the authority. And now these parents are the ones who are having now the young people now. How do we help? I don't know whether this is the correct word, deconstruct that, so that now these parents are now willing. These parents are reverends, these parents are elders, they are all over. So, and the youth are all over. So we find ourselves interacting with the young people everywhere. So how do we deconstruct that so that we be able now to give the young people room to ask questions, beginning from our homes right to where we are in the ministry? Thank you.
Thank you, Rev, for the question. I say it's good to just embrace continuous learning. It never hurts to go and learn about the things we love. We went to train for ministry. We have invested in that. I think we can also train in, there are many, let's say, short courses or just conversations that can help parents to be able to connect more with the upcoming generations. There are new issues, but those issues are things we can also be open to learn about. And I think when we learn about it, we should be able to do that. So remember, these young people are living, they have a lot of information in their devices. They are willing to ask questions. They are not afraid. And so I think for us, it's just, we can learn. We can decide to learn. Just be open to learn. And I think when we learn, we pick up several things that can help us. So for me, what I would say is asking, sometimes young people would say certain things. For example, they may even say, I don't want to go to church. The easier way we know, the way we've been brought up is to say, you don't say that in this house. And there we attack and create a barrier. But it could be asking a follow-up question like, okay, why don't you want to go to church? Then that opens. So I just say keeping the communication lines open is good. So young people, even when it's difficult things or challenging things, they will feel that this is I can bring the questions here. Even though I know we may have different views, I can bring my question here. So I would say maintain the communication lines open by asking questions. When young people say things that seem a bit threatening, ask and the question, it helps them to unpack and share more, and then we can be able to communicate. So asking questions and then being open to learn more about the next generation. We have a number of short courses we do, for example, at St. Paul's University, maybe in terms of the Limuru Resolve. I think when we talk about the region, then those would be things that could be done if they can be taken up by the office. We can also create these opportunities to further the conversation. Asante.
Thank you, Rev. Thank you.
So thank you, Prof, for speaking to us about how to support children, and most especially to us who are in the front line of supporting grieving families. I think just while listening to you, and I appreciate the fact that you spoke in a way that communicated to us that we are supposed to embrace play as a therapy solution for children. And now that we are the decision makers, many of them are here, moderators, session clerks, it's good to encourage churches to have play areas for children, because that is a way for them to release pain, to release pressure that is in them, and to not only just have play centers, but to keep updating them and to encourage that even our church school classes are curated in a way that supports a child's mind. And I appreciate the many efforts that churches are doing. And then the other thing is to support children ministry coordinators to go to back to school to do psychology courses, because then they are better placed to support families. And I like how my Rev Karanja does at Loresho. He will involve the two of us, myself, the children coordinator, and my colleague, the youth pastor, while going to a grieving family, so that that family is then supported holistically. From Rev, who is our senior, to my colleague, our youth pastor, and myself, who speaks to the children in that family. So while going to that family, then there is a face of the whole church, because they come to me, I'm their Sunday school teacher or coordinator. Then if they are teenagers, the youth pastor is there. And then we all know that our pastor is there, our reverend. So that then a children ministry coordinator or even the church school teachers are supported enough with skill and also now the knowledge of how to care for families, because children are usually neglected when they are going through grief. So thank you, Prof, for doing that.
Thank you, Pato.
Praise the Lord. My name is Washington Modomi. I'm born again by the grace of God. Happy to be here. I come here proudly representing the backbenchers, because in our churches we think backbenchers do not actively participate in our worship services. So at least that desk has been ably represented, quite active. I come from PC Kasarani, West Parish, and everybody who is standing here is talking about their wonderful, good minister. So my minister is also in the house. He's anasimanga ametoka Ruguru. I don't know where Ruguru is. The Ruguru person who's Kikuyu like he does. So I serve with Reverend Henry Rubonga. By the grace of God, I am the session treasurer, and we have had a good time. But it is also good to mention that we were ordained during the term of the Reverend Dr. Edward Karanja when he was our parish minister at Kasarani, and we've continued to serve the Lord, and we thank him. I have encountered Prof severally, and when she was getting in, she reminded me a night that we had a very big struggle, because when we were ordaining our elders, and Dr. Kevin came to speak, and then there were riots. I remember he drove home at around 2 a.m. And so we had to use a very wrong route to Kiambu, then drop in to Kafika Sukari. And then she was yelling, I'm praying that you are going to get through Githurai. Go with God. And you know that time, she is home. She is sending me with God. So she is already home and she is sending me with God. So I am grateful that even God, not the devil who pushes you when you think you're chasing away demons. So we can't be grateful enough. I think I envy your husband, because now you can imagine his ministry and all these other things that we are struggling with. Ziko first hand hapo kwa nyumba, halipi, anapewa first hand before ikuwe diluted. We want to thank God that you chose to come and speak to us, equip us. And I believe we are better persons to be able to handle our children, isn't it? What I loved is because you were very practical, and you told us, you deliberately pushed us to go down to where the children are. I know it is not very easy, but we will try. So we will try our best. So feel appreciated. Feel that we are humbled by your presence, and the knowledge that you have impacted us with is not going into waste. So you didn't waste your afternoon. These are diligent people who are going to put it into practice. So I would kindly invite you that you receive a small token from us. This package is given with love from the region of Nairobi, so that as you go home, you're not going home empty-handed, but you're going with something to remind you. We are sending you home with something to remind you. We are creating a memory for you for this one. And not a bad one, but a good one. So as you receive this and as you go home, know that this is from the region with a lot of love, and we pray that the Lord continues to impact you so that you impact generations for his glory. So receive this with a lot of thanks from all of us. She's asking whether there is a photo. So she has asked, is there a photo? Okay. Thank you so much and God bless you.